Forbes India Developers A-List, powered by Jaguar Group.
Can I begin with you, Mr. Mishra?
Sure.
You know, let's start from the very beginning. When we started, when this whole real estate boom started in India, from then to now, you know, where do we see the focus and emphasis on sustainability? How have we seen it evolve and grow?
See, the sustainability issue started in India with the Environment Protection Act of 1986, where it is now required that every development that takes place in any city in India, there is an environment committee before which they have to present their works, any developer of any kind. And there are certain parameters of environment sustainability that forces them to follow. So there is no choice but to follow. So the idea is sustainability is something that you cannot now live without. It's no more a luxury, it is a requirement.
It's a requirement, right.
The other thing is, the other most important thing is supply of land. I think nothing can be more luxury oriented than land supply. They don't manufacture land. So the scarcity of land is luxury.
That's right.
And that is
Yes.
what is basically affecting the real estate price. And thirdly, I think now the developers who have basically come into the field of development are extremely talented, highly educated, and they understand their responsibility of delivering a good design concept. And I think this is how it started in India, and things are going for good ahead.
That's fascinating. Mr. Kamal Sagar, you know, when we travel to cities, right, somewhere I find that all our cities are looking very similar to each other when it comes to design and architecture. And a lot of it is inspired by the Western concept. We have, you know, glass facades, which are not very suitable for the Indian climate, but we've copied that design. Do we see a change in that, or is that the best design that we can really think of?
Well, I think I continue to believe that real estate, is still largely designed on the spreadsheets by investors and financiers, and to a great extent, that starts governing how things are designed. But customers are becoming more demanding, and I think people are realizing that, and the change is slowly coming into the country, where design is more meaningful and is going beyond just, gimmick and sales-based design, which is, stuff that look good on the brochures and or will attract customers to buy. I think it's going beyond that now.
Okay. Mr. Pandya, I wanted to get a sense from you on, luxury is considered about exclusivity. We talk about if this is luxurious, it's an exclusive experience. So is sustainability still in that category? Is luxury still about exclusivity, and is sustainability, does it come in that exclusivity category?
No, I think to put it in perspective, I like to say that, post-pandemic, we need to refer to history in a different time frame. Rather than BC and AD, we need to say before Corona and after Corona, BC and AC. The reason being that it very well convinced and taught us about those fundamental values of equality to begin with, plurality, sustainability, as well as all the ETs that we talk about. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to change our notion of what is luxury as well as what is sustainability. It's a more holistic concept. Luxury is not being big, often small may be beautiful. Luxury may be being with nature and being with people, because these are the two fundamentals of any existence that we learned post-pandemic, that any sustainable development or any kind of sustained existence is about human to human equilibrium or sustainability or symbiosis, or human to nature. So I think nature is a luxury, if in the
That's right.
house rather than an extra room, if you are able to give one little outdoor space, even on a 19th floor, and variety of that. So I think luxury is being about what I can connect to, where I can feel it's mine. Again, taking clue from the pandemic, we all learned that we all, while indoors, could still be ourselves and use the time with our body clock rather than the wristwatch. So that freedom of being is, I think, to me, luxury. And that doesn't come in terms of exclusivity or not. I think it's for all. And any development need to and want to offer that sort of a quality. So it's about value addition. What do you get? It's some good Ahmedabadi. I can say, what do I get a little more out of what I pay? So I think that's luxury. So it could be beauty. It could be appropriateness. It could be kind of, something that I can enjoy and be part of. Any design that can inform, involve, and inspire. So I
Right.
think that's what it is about.
No, I
It's
completely
not just
agree.
one thing
Nature.
singular.
I completely agree. Nature is luxury. Mr. Amin, we had a little trivia quiz in the earlier session on how sustainable Jaguar is in the kind of recycling that Jaguar has been doing. So I want to ask you, when you have clients, do they ask for a sustainable product option? Is that something, and does that cost more money?
In the long run, no, it doesn't cost money. Yes, there's a lot of demand for eco-friendly green products. And I think more and more, in fact, our Artis brand is completely green. And in Jaguar brand also, we have a lot of options. So yeah, the demand for eco products is going up. And I'm sure the developers are pushing the envelope in giving better products, better amenities. And in the center of all that is sustainability. So yes, we are geared up. I mean, we are backing up the developers in giving these kind of products.
Interesting. Mr. Mishra, when you teach your students, when you talk to them
Right.
about the amazing architecture of our country, are there any historical examples that you use in your conversations? What, according to you, are the most sustainable buildings that India can boast of?
I think all our monuments in India
Yeah.
have been designed without the use of electricity.
Right. And they're wonderful.
They are very well ventilated. They are very comfortable to go to.
Yes.
And all examples of vernacular architecture based on the regions in India are actually best examples of vernacular art. So when we teach students in architecture schools, we ask them to study the local architecture, local building material, local craftsmanship, and how they could do actually a beautiful design out of it. So the design thinking, design concept, design development, design delivery has to be local. You may think globally, but you have to deliver locally. And this is very important.
But is that getting implemented? Mr. Sagar, as Mr. Mishra pointed out, that's what students are taught. But then, like I said, a lot of our buildings look very similar. We're not being very creative in our design. And when it comes to incorporating nature in our, in our architecture and design, it's still not the norm. It might be an exception. Why is that?
Why is it not the norm to bring nature into our buildings?
Yes, and why is it that, why are we not experimenting enough in the way we are designing our buildings? In Delhi, for instance, you have the Terry building, which is considered to be a green building. But a lot of the new developments that are coming up, I don't think any of them would meet like a sustainable building criteria. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
So, I don't know if you know, but we have been doing exactly that since 1996. So, every single home that we build has a garden on whatever floor it's on, right? And it's typically pretty large, where many of the rooms open out into that garden. So, it's something we have been doing. And I think the reason why very few others are doing it is because maybe that garden is considered an outdoor space, it does consume the same FSI. So when you sell it, maybe people are worried that they won't be able to sell that space, and that's the reason they don't do it. Other reasons, I think, maybe they're worried about waterproofing or something like that, and that, having to deal with issues later. I don't know, but we have been doing this for 30 years now. Green roofs, terrace gardens, step gardens, all kinds of gardens, and all kinds of ways to connect with nature. And it is not a big deal to do it.
Mr. Pandya, do you think there's an opportunity for India to build its own sustainable design concept? Somewhere we can, where we can become an example for the world to follow?
No, absolutely. And I think not being sort of self-boasting, but India had always had these values fundamentally ingrained, I would say, right in its way of life. Sustainability begins from way of life. There was a study done in Japan that if these senior executives were relieved of their tight tuxedo kind of a dressing, they'll feel the same level of comfort with fewer degree warmer AC temperatures. So it was the wrong dressing having to jack up the energy and the AC. So if Mr. Mohanlal or people from the Kerala or the coastal region are wearing the mund and if they are bare-chested, are they primitive or they are appropriately dressed for the hot, humid climate? So what I'm saying is that right from whether it's the attire, whether it's a lifestyle, whether it's the food habits, whether it's the, most sensible thing to do in a hot climate is to have siesta. Again, rather than going by the wristwatch, you can be by the body clock. So that's why warmer places have the routine of siesta. So I think each place must develop its own norm that picks up from the realities as well as aspirations of the place and people, because it has to be responsive to place, people, and planet. So I think it's high time that we don't ape it, rather than we evolve and remember that what we had in our own legacy. And it's not boasting past again, but for 3 performance reasons we could look at them. One, for their timeless aesthetics, that even today, 1,000-year or century-old monuments we like, or it inspires awe. Why can't we create today's architecture that would have the same quality? So learn those principles. Second, when there was no electricity and yet there was comfort as well as convenience, we actually admire the buildings of the past in every way. Can we learn those principles that even if we are to use AC only sometime and only little? And third, they were from the place and for the place, and therefore they were socio-culturally appropriate. There's nothing like good, bad, or ugly. It's always appropriate and inappropriate. We have to play like a doctor. He doesn't go with a preconceived notion कि आजकल तो fog चल रहा है, आजकल तो ये virus है. He has to look at each patient on its own merit. So I think India needs to develop, and I would further take it, not even India. I think each region has to have its own norm of development, which is appropriate in a larger context, place, people, and planet.
That sounds so wonderful. It really sounds wonderful, and I do hope that we get to see that in our lifetimes. Mr. Amin, do you feel that there has been a change in what people are asking for? Do you get a lot of requests for sustainable items? And do you see a change in buying behavior? Are people leaning towards getting more sustainable products into their homes?
Yeah, see, post-COVID, we have seen a remarkable shift in the way India is consuming overall. From a savings economy, we have moved to a consumption economy. And parallelly, the aspirations of the customers have changed dramatically. But in center of all this, green products, eco products has become the new norm, especially the millennials, the Gen Z. They're very conscious about these kind of things. We have made a lot of inroads on those areas. Like we have water reduction faucets, right from 30% to 80% water saving. We have aspirational products like wellness, which comes with recycling facilities. 15 to 20 times you can recycle the water. So that saves a lot of water. We have heat pumps, which reduces energy by 75%, bringing down CO2 emissions and parallelly giving you all-weather experience. So these are the efforts in that direction, yeah.
I wanted to get a perspective from all of you on this. That is it that if I were to go for a sustainable home option, would it cost me more in today's times? Is the cost of construction higher? Is the maintenance higher? Is there a premium to it that I'll have to pay for as a consumer?
No, yeah. I think reinventing the past traditional technology will help you invent better future. And therefore, how you use technology, how you adapt technology, so that you get best of both, will reduce the cost. And this is something that people should ask for, they should aspire for. They should remember that by doing this, by participating in this, they are saving their own environment. The quality of life will improve, urbanism will improve.
But are the developers offering us with this option? Are there options there?
Now, most of the component of the land cost goes to the high pricing of the apartments. I think if developers, I think Sir said they are very demanding, the consumers are demanding. If developers who are already sensitized are requested by the consumers that we want this, nothing less than this, then developers have no option but to supply. And they should be willing to pay them, and they will be very happy to do it. I think this understanding, if comes and is implemented as a reform, as a policy reform, I think it should be doable. And the cost doesn't matter, because what are you doing? What are you paying for? For yourself. So it doesn't matter.
Interesting. Mr. Sagar, in terms of consumer awareness, to spread awareness that consumers should go out and ask for a sustainable home, are we doing enough?
Who doing enough? We as developers, or
Are developers doing enough? Are, as a society, culturally, are we doing enough to create that awareness?
So I think no. The simple answer to that is no. I don't think we're doing enough. I don't think there's enough commitment from anyone in the system, not the government, not the people, not the developers. There's very low level of commitment as of now. I think there are very basic issues. People are still stretching their budgets to buy a home, and of course it's different in cities like Bombay and Delhi, where the cost of land is so high that whatever difference you make on those things doesn't impact the pricing. But in places like Bangalore, it does. And so even to your question about, are customers really asking for those things? They are not. The answer is no, they are not. They are absolutely not. It may be 1%, maybe 0.5%, but 99% of them are not even talking about it. And that's the stark reality as of today.
But government can give incentives.
But the government is giving
government
incentives.
is giving incentives in two ways. One is, like in Maharashtra, there is a subsidy on the charges for premium FSI if your building is green certified, and that's quite a significant amount. So people are trying to do that to get that benefit. There are banks that are offering interest rates at, loans at lower interest rates if your building is green certified. So those are ways to kind of encourage that to happen.
Okay. All right. Mr. Pandya, very quickly, a closing comment from you. In terms of awareness, we are very behind. As has been pointed out, that a lot of stakeholders are not really acting very aggressively on building a sustainable green ecosystem when it comes to our real estate. What's the one thing that you think can be done in the short term to enable this ecosystem?
I think get out of the hype. Right now, that's what is causing the problem. I think we think 20 feet by 25 feet, 500 square feet is the minimum size of the luxurious bedroom. I don't know, we play cricket inside, or what do we do with that? So I think we have to first understand, in Europe, in one of the places, most expensive, prestigious hotel had 3.5 feet kind of a bathing area, and total put together it was 7 feet by 3 feet. So what I'm trying to say is that first of all, we need to be right about our standards. And for that, the mindset, right from on one hand, again, I'm not passing the buck. I think we as architects have to be taking the first blame and have to set the right norm and standard to even educate the client or to dialogue. I'm not saying we are too big to educate, but to dialogue and say that how this is still appropriate. Second, the media not to go by the hype. And third, because developers only end up responding to the demands. So if the demands kind of become little more aware and responsible, then the response will be even appropriate. And then to build with these strategies and policies, I think policy has to be very coordinated to say, reduce, refuse, and first refuse, then reduce, and likewise.
So I think this is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Buyers have to demand, then the developers will deliver. But how will the buyers know what they're demanding if they don't see something?
No.
Right? So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. I think we've run out of time. With that, it's a wrap. But would you like to say something?
No, I was just going to say that it's not necessarily, see, right now, if the demands are more than supply, then they go by anything. But that's where things are changing, and that's why again I'm bringing Corona in it, that now more and more people are with even false notion of it, but that's a buzzword that has come about, and people are asking for it. Is there this component in what you're trying to give? So it's just now the onus is for builders to take a little extra step, not think into four walls, but to understand that what they are creating creates society. A house creates the street, and street creates the city, and then the planet. So I think they have to take a little extra leap and not just respond, but take a torch, because they are ones who are making a larger difference, multiplying with a little. So not work from the mind, but work from the heart.
Right.
And last sentence I'll say, give value to what? Not the Gandhian currency. We give a lot of value to Gandhian currency. Make Gandhian value the currency.
Fantastic. You should have a podcast on this. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you all discuss what is a very crucial issue. We do hope that our developers go back with some interesting ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Forbes India Developers A-List, powered by Jaqua Group.